of Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party from The Hobbit. I'll build on what I already wrote, adding deeper dives into the dwarves, the narrator's style, and the mythological literary roots Tolkien is drawing from. Expanded explanation of Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party from The Hobbit. Spur 1, Introduction to the Chapter. Chapter 1 of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Party, stands as one of the most memorable beginnings in fantasy literature. Tolkien does not start with action, violence, or high drama, but with a quiet, whimsical picture of life in the Shire. This introduction is vital. It grounds the reader in ordinary comfort before pulling both Bilbo Baggins and us into the world of adventure, dragons, and peril. The chapter functions on multiple levels. It introduces Bilbo, our unlikely protagonist. It establishes hobbits as a race and their place in Middle-earth. It introduces Gandalf, who will guide the story and act as the catalyst for Bilbo's transformation. It presents Thorin Oakenshield and his company of dwarves, whose quest forms the backbone of the novel. It sets up themes of comfort versus adventure, respectability versus daring, and the potential for heroism in the ordinary. Though written for children in 1937, this chapter reveals Tolkien's depth as a writer of myth, comedy, and narrative craft. 2. The setting, Bag End and the Hill. Tolkien's opening line, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit," is deceptively simple. With this sentence, he defines the world of the story as earthy, domestic, and tied to home. The description of Bag End is unusually detailed for a children's story. Tiled floors, paneled walls, pantries, wardrobes, and round windows overlooking meadows. This hobbit hole serves several symbolic functions. Domestic comfort. Bag End is warmth, safety, and predictability made physical. It represents everything Bilbo values. Psychological mirror. The hobbit hole reflects Bilbo's state of mind, circular, enclosed, content, and resistant to change. Foreshadowing contrast. By establishing such a vivid sense of home, Tolkien makes Bilbo's eventual departure more dramatic. When Bilbo leaves Bag End, he truly leaves everything behind. The Shire itself, though not yet fully named in this chapter, is implied through the hill and the water. It represents a peaceful, agrarian society, untouched by war or dark magic. This safe setting makes the intrusion of Gandalf and the dwarves all the more disruptive. Number 3. What is a hobbit? Since hobbits are Tolkien's invention, he pauses to describe them in detail. Hobbits are small, cheerful, comfort-loving folk who dislike adventure. They have tough, hairy feet, cheerful faces, and a fondness for food and laughter. Why is this important? It sets up Bilbo as an unlikely hero. Unlike the warriors of epics or kings of sagas, Bilbo begins as ordinary, small, and timid. It roots the story in humor and humanity. Hobbits are exaggerated versions of home-loving English folk. Readers can relate to their desire for comfort and avoidance of danger. It establishes the narrator's voice. The description is conversational. Now you know enough to go on with. This signals to the reader that the story will be told with warmth and humor. This section makes hobbits seem almost invisible to the great stories of Middle-earth. Yet, paradoxically, this very ordinariness makes Bilbo's coming adventure remarkable. Number 4. Bilbo's family background. Baggins versus Took Bilbo is defined by his dual heritage. The Baggins side, respectable, predictable, and wealthy. The Bagginses never do anything unexpected. They embody bourgeois stability. The Took side, adventurous, eccentric, possibly with fairy blood. Rumors suggest that some Tooks went on wild adventures, which the family discreetly hushed up. This conflict between Baggins and Took is more than genealogical. It symbolizes the conflict within Bilbo himself. His Baggins side loves routine, safety, and social approval. His Took side secretly yearns for adventure, though he doesn't realize it yet. Tolkien is dramatizing the universal human tension between comfort and growth, between staying home and venturing into the unknown. 5. The arrival of Gandalf. The story truly begins with Gandalf's arrival. He is described in folkloric terms, a tall wizard with a pointed hat, gray cloak, white beard, and twinkling eyes. His presence immediately signals magic, mischief, and the extraordinary. The initial exchange between Bilbo and Gandalf is comic but layered. Bilbo greets Gandalf with a simple, "Good morning." Gandalf playfully twists the phrase, questioning its meaning. This shows his trickster nature and foreshadows the riddles and wordplay central to the novel, such as Bilbo's later encounter with Gollum. Bilbo, polite and flustered, tries to avoid entanglement, while Gandalf insists on conversation. Through this exchange, Tolkien demonstrates their contrasting characters, Bilbo's desire for order versus Gandalf's ability to unsettle and provoke. Gandalf is the archetypal mentor figure of the hero's journey, nudging Bilbo out of complacency. Number 6. The Unexpected Guests. 13 dwarves. That evening, Bilbo is overwhelmed by the sudden arrival of 13 dwarves, arriving in pairs and trios until his tidy home is filled with noise, laughter, and chaos. Each dwarf is briefly characterized. Dwalin and Balin. The first to arrive, Balin later proves the friendliest to Bilbo. Keely and Feely, the youngest, lively, and cheerful. Dori, Nori, Ori, often portrayed as slightly comic, prone to grumbling. Oin and Gloin, mentioned together, pragmatic and plain-spoken. Beefer, Bofer, Bomber. Beefer and Bofer are brothers. Bomber is comically fat and often the butt of jokes. Thorin Oakenshield, the final arrival, noble, proud, and leader of the company. The comedy of the scene lies in Bilbo's frantic hospitality. He scurries about serving food and drink, watching his pantry empty, while his sense of order collapses. Tolkien uses this comedy to symbolize the disruption of Bilbo's world. The safe hobbit hole is no longer his own. 7. The music and the song of the dwarves. Once the dwarves are settled, they sing. The first songs are light and comic, but then comes Thorin's solemn song, far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old. This is a turning point. The mood shifts from comedy to grandeur. The song tells of dwarven exile, dragonfire, and the longing for home. It awakens something in Bilbo. The Tookish side stirs. For the first time, he feels a longing for far-off mountains and adventure. This is Tolkien at his best, blending myth and poetry with narrative. The song is not mere decoration. It deepens the world building, reveals the dwarves' motivation, and foreshadows the epic quest to come. Thorin Oakenshield and the Quest Thorin, grandson of Thror, recounts the history of his people, how they once dwelt in Erebor, the lonely mountain, rich with treasure. But Smaug the dragon descended upon them, driving them into exile. Now Thorin seeks to reclaim his kingdom and treasure. Gandalf has suggested Bilbo as their burglar, though the dwarves are skeptical. Thorin, in particular, doubts Bilbo's usefulness. This is the central quest of the novel. Dwarves, wizard, and hobbit will set out to reclaim a homeland, yet the introduction is deliberately comic. The contrast between Bilbo's domestic panic and Thorin's noble seriousness sets the tone for the entire book, a blend of whimsy and epic. 9. Bilbo's reluctance and conflict. Throughout the chapter, Bilbo insists he wants no adventure. He protests, fidgets, and even faints at the mention of dragons. Yet when the dwarves sing, he feels a stirring in his heart. This ambivalence, wanting both safety and adventure, defines his character. This duality is crucial. If Bilbo were eager from the start, his growth would be less meaningful. By beginning as reluctant, his eventual bravery is more powerful. His hesitation also makes him relatable to readers, who may sympathize with his love of home and fear of risk. Themes in Chapter 1. Several major themes of The Hobbit emerge clearly. Comfort versus adventure, Bag End versus the Lonely Mountain. Respectability versus reputation, Baggins, social approval versus Took, personal growth. The call to adventure, Gandalf and the dwarves invite Bilbo into a journey he resists. The ordinary hero, Bilbo is small, domestic, and ordinary, yet he will become heroic. Now 11, the narrator's voice. One of the most distinctive features of this chapter is Tolkien's narrator. The voice is warm, playful, and often intrusive. Phrases like, "Now you know enough to go on with," create intimacy. The story feels less like a novel and more like a tale told aloud by a fireside. This style connects the story to oral tradition and fairy tales, keeps the tone light even when discussing dragons, allows Tolkien to balance comedy with grandeur. The narrator is part of why The Hobbit feels timeless. 12. Mythological and literary influences. Tolkien was a scholar of Norse and Anglo-Saxon literature, and this chapter reflects his background. Dwarves. Their names come from the Old Norse Völuspá. Thorin Oakenshield's name and epithet are borrowed directly from Norse tradition. The Wizard. Gandalf resembles Odin, who wandered in disguise, stirring mortals into action. The Dragon. Smaug follows the archetype of Fafnir, the dragon from the Volsunga saga, who guards treasure. The Call to Adventure. The structure mirrors folktales, where an ordinary character is pulled into extraordinary events. Tolkien blends this mythic material with English domesticity, tea, pantries, pipe smoking, creating something new, modern fantasy grounded in both myth and everyday life. Number 13, the chapter as a microcosm. Chapter 1 functions as a miniature version of the entire book. Comedy, Bilbo's fussing, and epic, Thorin's song. Domestic life, the Hobbit hole, and adventure, the Lonely Mountain. Respectability, Baggins, and daring, Took. Small beginnings leading to great deeds. Everything that follows is foreshadowed here. Number 14. Conclusion. An Unexpected Party is more than just a funny beginning. It is a carefully constructed chapter that introduces characters, sets themes, and dramatizes Bilbo's internal conflict. Bilbo Baggins, respectable hobbit, has his world disrupted by Gandalf and 13 dwarves. Though reluctant, he feels the first stirrings of adventure. By the end of the chapter, his life is already changed. The chapter balances humor with myth, domesticity with grandeur, and the ordinary with the extraordinary. It sets the stage for a story where a small hobbit will play a crucial role in events far beyond his comfortable home. Thank you for watching BookVerse Audio, where every story comes to life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this journey through the world of books.